This meeting is being recorded.
All right, well, welcome everyone. My name is Liz Philippe, and I am a project manager on the United in Sustainability program for UNFCU, working specifically on the external affairs team. And it's such a pleasure to join you for this first quarterly call of 2023. It's hard to believe time has flown by since our United in Sustainability Summit last November at UN headquarters. We have a few of you in attendance who took part either virtually or in person, and really to build upon that momentum that we had. We had over 300 participants at the event, and we're thrilled to be joined by the international delegations from Brazil, folks from Ireland and Barbados. So you can see the movement is growing, and we are a community here that's really dedicated to sharing best practices and ideas. And our network is a forum, United in Sustainability, a platform to share ideas and best practices. And we definitely want to hear from all of you throughout this session. Want to provide some time for Q&A, which is always an integral part of our work, to get the feedback, to provide you with resources to help you on your sustainability journeys. Many of you are well on your way. Some have just started, and we're here for credit unions large and small, again, just to build up the partnerships for the Sustainable Development Goals. Many of you are familiar with those goals, which seek to end the world's ills. Climate action, goal number 13, woven into so many of the 17 goals. But I'd like to say that goal number 17 on partnerships is my favorite one, and that's why we're all here together taking collective action. So United in Sustainability, we have a full agenda. As you know, we've got the advance slide. Thank you so much. We have a terrific guest speaker who is an instructor and insightful commentator on ESG trends. So Nikos Avlonis will share the stage in just a few minutes. We'll also be talking about plans for Earth Day, which is just around the corner, for World Environment Day as well. Looking a little bit back towards February, some of you took part in that great Credit Union National Association Government Affairs Conference in Washington, D.C., where there was significant advocacy work, and we want to build up that aspect of our United in Sustainability program. So a colleague, Patrick Seiler, who moderated a panel, will be sharing a bit of a recap what took place there. There's a lot of news and developments, certainly even today in the headlines, about Europe and potential legislation on greenwashing. We heard on Monday about the UN Climate, the IPCC Intergovernmental Panel on Climate Change report, which did have some sobering news. And we are going to be closing with just a broad brush about our capstone event of the year. It's hard to believe, almost heading into that planning stage for the United in Sustainability Summit. So just again, here's our plan for today. Wanted to welcome again everyone who's joined since, including members of our leadership of the Global Sustainability Program, Prasad Surapanini, Pamela Agnone, Emma Gordon, who heads up our corporate social responsibility, and we are proud to have a new team member join us, Sofia Villarreal in the GSP program, a specialist in sustainability. So again, welcome all. We will look right ahead to our next slide, which I hope everybody's familiar, and if you're not, we have a wealth of information on the uisnetwork.org site. So this is continually being added to in terms of resources, news, and information. You'll be hearing about some of the working groups, about our leadership really wanting to amplify our efforts, working with our supply chain, for example, to raise awareness about sustainability. And the fact that we are credit union centered, and it's in our DNA to have a positive impact on our community. So that's why our credit unions should lead in this space. So looking at the next slide, we've got, again, just a quick review, just catching everybody up on the pillars of our collective action. Credit union centered, We're looking at this community leadership that we bring, and many of you are doing outstanding work there. And again, this collective spirit and action on amplifying. We're going to be doing more about how credit unions from different parts of the country are taking action and just building up a concerted effort to be able to have an even greater impact, a choir of voices talking to our suppliers, for example. So now on our next slide, the question of the day, where are you on your sustainability journey? So I want you to think of that as we move through our presentation and some of the other aspects of today's agenda. Again, that's the purpose of our movement, to provide information and to help you. So with that, I think it's the perfect segue to our guest speaker, Nikos Avlanis, who's a professor of the Center for Sustainability and Excellence, offers wonderful training programs to really help provide top-line information as well as deeper dive knowledge. Nikos knows an incredible amount based on his experience. CSE is a global sustainability strategic advisory and training firm with offices and insights from North America, Europe, Middle East, and Asia. And he's really a recognized leader in this space. So while I did say we have sobering news coming down the pike from the IPCC, the UN Climate Change Report, we today will be discussing winning the sustainability and climate race. So with that note of optimism, over to you, Nikos.
Thank you so much, Liz. Good morning, all. Thank you so much for the kind invitation and the opportunity to share with you our research findings on the financial sector and what's happening, what is going on today, what is going to happen in the next couple of years on the sustainability space. It's so exciting what's happening today. As you probably are aware, we have the IRA from Biden administration. This is the largest package in the history of US for promoting renewable energy, and it's going to change everything. We have so many other initiatives that are taking place that is changing the whole environment in a very dynamic way. So I spent 25 years in this space on sustainability and climate change agenda. I've seen a lot of things, but the last 2 years, what is happening, what is going on is amazing. It's challenging at the same time for the organizations that they try to comply with new stuff, with new legislation, with new initiatives, and this is not easy at the same time. So let me share with you, let me present CSE. Very briefly, we are a global organization on consulting and training. We have trained over 90% of Fortune 500 companies around the globe, so we're a leader in sustainability education, but also we work with government agencies such as NASA, US Forest Service, US Post Service, and several other government agencies, and we help organizations to maximize their social and environmental impacts. We are around the globe, and our headquarters are in Chicago, where I'm based as well. All right, let's get started with the term ESG. Probably the term ESG is less familiar in credit unions, but the term sustainability, although the term ESG is being used more and more, not only on private companies or publicly listed companies, but also in government agencies. And the term ESG is very important because it clarifies more the aspects of sustainability. So we have, be happy to share with you a definition of ESG for credit unions, which is how to use environmental, social, and governance factors and guidelines, creating advanced sustainability strategies while maximizing their impacts. This is an ESG definition for credit unions, and it's interesting definition because, of course, ESG and sustainability are strongly related with each other. Although ESG is a term that mostly used from financial sector the last years and the investors at the same time. In January 2023, we presented for the first time our 6th research on sustainability and ESG in North America. We do that for many years, and this research has a lot of publicity all over. This time, we selected 300 organizations from 30 leading business sectors, including financial sector. And what we wanted to identify were common practices on sustainability used towards strategic integration. So we wanted to identify what was the key success factors for integration of ESG and sustainability, and happily to share that with you. As Liz mentioned, the Sustainable Development Goals, the 17th Sustainable Development Goals today is the largest initiative in the globe for promoting sustainability and the most successful one. Everybody is more or less familiar with these goals, and more organizations that try to connect with them and contribute further or connect their initiatives with some of these goals. So in our research findings, we find out that the 17 Sustainable Development Goals is the basis of sustainability. Although there are many things else to be done, as you're going to see from our findings. So if I move on to the next slide, you're going to see some important trends we have seen only in the financial sector. And of course, I'm including in the financial sector private institutions, publicly listed institutions, and so on. So what we have seen is that beyond the 17 Sustainable Development Goals, we have seen an increased use of SASB standards and TCFD recommendations. TCFD is the Task Force for Climate Financial Disclosures. It's an extremely important initiative, and already SEC has created a legislation based on TCFD recommendations. So that was the first finding as a trend. The second finding is that we have seen the strengthening of standalone sustainability reporting. More and more financial institutions are doing standalone reporting instead of integrated reporting, where they integrate financial and sustainability information together. A third trend was the increased use of external assurance for reports and carbon emissions. As you know, self-disclosures were not extremely credible, and therefore there was a need for external assurance and external verifications, both of reports and greenhouse gas emissions. Another finding was that commitment to science-based targets for climate emissions reductions has been increasingly increased the last couple of years. And science-based initiative, it's a key initiative that more and more organizations join in order to show that they truly are committed to reduce their carbon emissions. Last trend was the carbon neutrality, or net zero, as we call it. Goals become the new standard. More and more organizations declare carbon neutral or net zero by 2030, 2035, or 2040. And this is another significant trend that we have seen in the financial sector. So this is only very few of our findings. According to the research that we have done the last 6 years, we can easily predict what is going to happen in 2025. So here you're going to see some of the really important trends. The first one is the ESG and capital access. So what we have seen is that in order to mitigate the financial losses of this year, there is a more emphasis to corporate ESG behavior. Why? Because the investors and other shareholders, they consider ESG as an important thing that all organizations should apply. Otherwise, these organizations cannot be considered as sustainable anymore. So we have a connection between capital and ESG factors than ever before. Especially in Europe, ESG is becoming mandatory. So no business can get financing today in Europe if they do not meet particular ESG criteria. So in Europe, move to a different level, higher level of capital access, and ESG are closely related with. Another important trend for 2025 is the ratings and standards, related standards. I present some of them in our findings, like SASB TCFD standards and also science-based targets are becoming very important for reporting purposes, and also there is a need for more transparency for all of these things. Third trend for 2025 is the climate risks. Those organizations that they will not plan to disclose environmental data, including scope 1, 2, and 3 emissions, will feel the consequences more than any other year. And this is already happening in the private sector, also in government sector as well. So we're going to see more and more pressures also for the credit unions at the same time. And finally, changing policies. Already 150 major global financial institutions have implemented policies to exit coal. So coal is not going to be financed in the near future together with fossil fuels. These two areas, including other activities, they're going to be very difficult to get and financing now on from the big financial institutions. So as the whole world is moving, credit unions are part of this world, and a lot of things are changing at the same time. In our research, we have identified a methodology where it helps organizations maximizing and sustainability integration and impact. This methodology has 4 steps and helps organizations integrate faster and better sustainability. The first part is the education of the executives in the importance of sustainability strategy. This is a very important first step. Second step is to engage with their stakeholders, having a materiality assessment and identify what is material to their clients, employees, local communities, and so on. Third step is to create a sustainability strategy and set goals for all material topics. And of course, the last step is to publish a sustainability report as part of an ISS system. So these 4 very simple step approach, they can really boost your sustainability efforts, and it can really help you move on to the next level of sustainability. I consider the first and the second extremely important in order to move on with the third and the fourth step at the end. We know that a lot of organizations are issuing sustainability reports, including credit unions, as a first step, but this is not necessarily the right thing to do if you don't follow the other 3 steps as well. What credit unions should consider? I mean, based on what we have seen and what's happening in financial sector so far, it seems that credit unions are a bit behind in what's happening right now in financial sector. So important things that credit unions should consider on sustainability in order to catch up with the financial sector is to integrate environmental, social, and economic impacts in board member and C-suite decisions, educate, as I mentioned, in the 4-step methodology, the C-suite executives and managers, issue a sustainability report and trying to be more transparent, set up sustainability goals related to UN SDGs and other standards, and of course, provide financing that can maximize social and environmental footprint on areas that can be positive for the environment, but also social responsibility at the same time. I don't want to spend more of your time we do a lot of trainings around the globe, but particularly in New York City, it's the first on-site training we're going to do after the pandemic on the June 15 and 16 about leaders on sustainability. You are all welcome to join by the way. It's a 2-day course where you're going to be able to go more in depth and discuss about tools, exercises, and learn more on sustainability. We have a lot of members of the United Nations Financial Credit Union that have joined this course, and of course is happy to provide you more information. Overall, what I would like to clarify is that sustainability and ESG is not a checklist anymore, but a holistic approach of change and you have to see that in this way in order to be able to proceed with the next steps. So the 4-step methodology is going to help you a lot to move the whole organization towards sustainability. And another important finding is that moving from sustainability programs to sustainable organizations is a very important thing to do. Thank you so much, and happy, to spend the next couple of minutes for questions and answers or clarifications into my presentation. Ima, very good to see you. Any questions?
Thanks, Nico. Just wanted to add my welcome and thank you for participating and for sharing this helpful information. I'll turn it back over to Liz, who's our MC. Thank you.
All right, thanks so much, Ima and Nikos. Very great synopsis. I know you didn't have a wealth of time, but you have a wealth of information in terms of those practical 4 key steps. So at this point, if anybody has a question, would like to raise their hand, take themselves off mute to ask it, do please feel free. Always good to know, Nikos, what's the first thing people should do? What is the, for credit unions who are smaller, mid-sized, large, is it looking at learning what you don't know first, looking at an analysis, mapping to your strategy, looking at your operations and lead, your building itself, your physical plant? What do you suggest?
Yeah, I think the most important step that credit unions should do as a first step, obviously, in order to help and facilitate acceleration of sustainability internally, is to provide the training to their C-suite executives, starting from this level. Not moving to managers necessarily, but from C-suite executive level is very important, because whereas we have seen that there is a lot of misunderstanding on what's happening today and what there is the understanding of happening. And credit unions has always, the mentality that we're doing a great thing because there are credit unions. But at the same time, we have seen, comparing with the what's happening in the financial sector, they need to catch up with what's happening, especially the large or medium-sized credit unions, because there's going to be a lot of legislation is coming, and it's going to be even difficult to catch up with legislation as we move on. We have the IRA plan of Biden administration, we have the SEC legislation, we have executive orders for the government agencies. There's so many things happening right now on sustainability, and this affects everybody. It's not only on credit unions, affects every organization is operating here, among other countries, of course. So training comes first.
Yeah. Very good. Yeah, well, we're certainly watching the developments in the greater financial industry where there is the more direct impact with SEC, and that is also, in terms of keeping abreast of international news as well, really important for credit unions offsite. Oh, Malia, we have a question there. Nice to meet you.
Yes, nice to meet you. Thank you for putting this together. And you kind of touched on it, but I have a question specific about kind of the advocacy and the legislative work. I mean, as I understand ESG, it is very investor purpose driven. And obviously credit unions are quite a bit different when it comes to that. So what do you think we all might be looking at or should be considering or talking about to really make sure that any legislation that is moving takes into consideration our unique structure so that we don't get pulled into something that really doesn't make any sense at all from a credit union's perspective? Because I actually see that being one of the biggest hurdles for us, at least initially, as credit unions.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, that's a great question, Maya. I try to provide my perspective. ESG right now is changing the planet. Why? Because the financial institutions, in order to provide financing to any kind of business, medium-sized business, large business, they need to assess their ESG status of this organization. So there's a strong correlation today between financing and private organizations. So why? Because the investors are putting pressure to publicly listed, big institutions. You are not directly involved in that, obviously, but you are indirectly part of the whole chain, of the whole value chain, as we call it. So my expectations is that this year and next year, you're going to see a lot of changes in requirements for financing perspective. Or also, you're going to see issues like fossil fuel or financing on fossil fuels or on coal is going to be more difficult to provide financing on these activities. And there's going to be more pressure to credit unions for measuring the social and environmental impact of their financing activities at the same time. This is what I can see from our research perspective.
Thank you.
Welcome.
Very good. Any other questions? And I could also open the floor up to Patrick Seiler as well, or Pablo, right, with their insights on on legislation. Pablo, do you want to?
Liz, but before we jump, I just wanted to ask, I do think that was a fantastic setup for Pablo and for Patrick.
Yeah.
But Nikos, I did have one quick question, is we're often talking about sort of the legislative and sort of the reactive nature of engaging with ESG. Has any of your research shown some of the value drivers, either from a consumer perspective, like that might be more positive reasons to engage, not just sort of negative, I don't want to say negative, but reactive to legislative pressure or something, but maybe consumer choice, preferring institutions, or at least taking that to account? Or I think at UNFCU, we've seen opportunities in cost reductions in our operations by engaging in more efficient operations. But I was wondering if your research or your experience has seen.
Obviously, obviously I did not share all the findings of the research. It's a long research. We have seen a strong correlation between increase of profitability and ESG ratings performance. So the higher their ESG ratings, there's more direct connectivity with the increase of profitability of the business. And we have seen that in a very large scale. And I provided an interview about that to specific media because I had a very high interest about that. Obviously, it's about good leadership that introduce savings, operational savings, good motivation and engagement with the employees and other stakeholders. And there are particular factors that good ESG structure is not only minimizing risks, but may influence profitability at the same time. That was the outcome of our research. And in our research, we took under consideration 4 ESG ratings per organization, and then we compare them with their profitability within periods of time for the last couple of years.
Thank you, Nikos.
Pablo, did you want to follow up with a comment?
Well, first, Patrick, I mean, he's winning that tie, so
All right, over to you, Patrick Seiler from UNFCU.
Well, I'm going to just recap very quickly the wonderful conversation that we had down in Washington, D.C. at the Governmental Affairs Conference for credit unions that CUNA hosted for us earlier this month. Our guests there were John Jeffries from Callahan and Associates, Shabbat Singh from the Climate Reality Project, and Kathy Mann from Inclusive. You heard Nikos mention the Inflation Reduction Act. The focus of our conversation was one piece of the what we call the IRA, the Greenhouse Gas Reduction Fund. That's a $27 billion fund inside of the IRA for equitable climate finance. It envisions programs that could benefit credit unions, including rebates for high efficiency electric homes, tax credits for clean vehicle, clean energy, and residential efficiency projects. So the quick and dirty version of our nice conversation was the EPA is administering this greenhouse gas reduction fund. So far, the EPA has indicated that although depository institutions will not be eligible to be direct recipients of these funds, the EPA is going to identify between 2 and 15 direct recipients, not-for-profits around the country. EPA will then work to identify indirect recipients to actually get those funds out into communities. We expect to hear more in the coming months about the eligibility rules for recipients. This is all quite fresh in the regulatory space, so we don't have that information yet, but we're expecting an update probably sometime this summer. This is an opportunity for low-income communities to have access at last to sustainability capital, which I think the way that one of our speakers put it, you don't see poor people putting solar panels on their homes. They have other priorities with the limited resources that they have. So
Or
it's
driving Teslas.
Say again?
Or driving Teslas.
Or driving Teslas, right? They're kind of priced out of that market, and you have priorities for your resources when those resources are more limited. So this is a nice opportunity for low-income communities to get into this into the sustainability mix. And the main point that I just want to drive home here that came up was that we see credit unions as uniquely positioned to be a part of this solution. We have 3 really strong reasons for that. Credit unions are already highly regulated, so the EPA would not have to reinvent the wheel when it comes to accountability for the funds that get released into the communities. Credit unions have access to low-cost capital in the form of member deposits, so we don't need to go and do some other sort of risky borrowing. That's maybe even more salient now after a couple of bank failures than it was at the beginning of the month before we'd seen that. And third, credit unions are already deeply rooted in these communities and have relationships with the people who would be taking this money and instituting it. So
thanks, Patrick, for sharing that. Many things, you're going to see so many things happening in the next 2 years or so, as I have seen the last 2 years, but I never seen in the last 25 years of my experience. So the acceleration we're going to see the next 2 years is going to be extremely high, like nothing ever seen before. That's my prediction.
Yeah, and to the professor's words, it's not just the acceleration, but also the spreading or the expanding the access to these, resources and technology for low-income consumers. I mean, this is not a secret, but low-income communities and minority communities are the ones that get affected most by climate change. They're the ones that are less prepared, right? So that this is an attempt to mitigate that. It's not going to eliminate it, for sure, but it's an attempt to mitigate it. So to Patrick's, Patrick really provided a great overview of what happened at the GAC and the fact that depository institutions won't be able to access these resources directly, but Inclusive is actually going to be participating. We're hoping to be one of those channels that EPA will be selecting. There's also another group that is also from the credit union industry that is doing a similar approach. So the message for everyone here is that credit unions are not going to be left behind. We are part of the solution. We are not the problem. We're not financing, fossil, oil or anything like that. So I think that from a credibility point of view, we are on the right side of history. But secondly, we are in the right places too. We are community owned. We are accountable to our community. So there can be any better mechanism for the government actually to bring these resources to the ground. So we are optimistic. We're not, of course, certain that will be one of those channels, but is hopefully likely that that's going to be the situation. And when that happens, we're going to be able to be, to engage everyone on this call and others in the industry, because this is really a unique opportunity for our movement.
Yeah, Pablo, you're absolutely right. I mean, from my perspective, right, which is outside of the credit union's perspective, you are one of the tools, right, that they can accelerate this change, which is actually happening right now. No question about that.
Very good. Thank you so much for the advocacy recap. Extremely helpful, and much to be done, and much that we're going to find out more about very soon. Are there any other questions at this point with regard to the steps in sustainability to starting that journey, or anything about the advocacy? If not, then you can hold that thought. If anything springs to mind in the next few minutes, we're going to jump over to a little different topic, looking at how member engagement and staff engagement overall has really been a great positive outgrowth in sustainability initiatives. Sylvia Baez, who is a program manager for our GSP, looking at the internal affairs side of the house, will provide some insight. And we also want to get your thoughts about how you are engaging your members on this topic. Your staff, is this a learning and development opportunity for them? Is it a way to retain staff and interest them, particularly the younger staff members? Well, we're all young at heart. So Sylvia, over to you with your insight. Thank you.
Thanks, Liz. I did want to mention that along with Tom, who wrote in the chat, I also attended the certification program by Nikos and his team. It was a very rewarding experience, learned a lot, and left with an action plan, not only if you're in the beginning stages of the journey or somewhere in the middle, but definitely some key takeaways to keep it moving forward. And I did apply some of that into what I'm going to share with you as far as staff engagement goes at our credit union. Our staff is in the Global Sustainability Program is all full volunteers. They are all in a position where they're able to select where they want to really put effort into their passion through our initiatives. They perform research in various areas across the board, from procurement and emissions, and then just by nature of joining those volunteer groups and the tasks at hand, they build on their learning and awareness of sustainability efforts, as well as build professional skill sets or enhance their existing professional skill sets. So it's really a win and rewarding experience on all levels. But specifically through staff engagement and the internal activities that we do, we focus just on that, raising awareness on the environmental days throughout the year. And our biggest day, which is coming up, is World Environment Day. We celebrate this in June. It's a weeks-long worth of celebrations that we have implemented, pretty much a structure around it. I'm happy to say that just this morning we kicked off the celebrations for 2023, really the planning of our celebration for 2023. But I can share with you what we did last year in 2022, where the theme was Only One Earth, with a focus on living sustainably in harmony with nature. We highlighted the SDG Goal 12 with responsible consumption and production, and the targets where we felt that staff could make an impact on a personal level. So at times, we have these conversations of how we can move the needle organizationally. What we try to do on our team is bring that down to a level that the staff can take action within their own homes. So we had put together some videos to show how to reduce any type of food waste, education on why natural resources are, or natural resource use matters, and so much more than that. The staff shared the sustainable products that they use in their own homes via short commercial clips. So we tried to make it as fun and engaging as possible. So they filmed themselves sharing things from paper products to eco-friendly footwear, to even hybrid vehicles. I'm not sure we got any videos on Teslas, but we did get a hybrid vehicle video, and we were able to put those clips together and do one still short, but about a 3-minute infomercial on what our very own staff is doing. And we shared that across the organization. We've also done things like photo contests that inspire behavior change. Some of those photos did have solar panels, gardens that folks have in their homes. And then we wrap up the week with a main event where we have guest speakers from our UN sponsor. Last year, we had from the Environment Program at the UN for Consumption and Production, we have the officer Bettina Heller, and she shared insights on fashion. So it was very fashion focused, our events, including a video message on textile waste that's very eye-opening to learn the amount of waste that ends up in landfills and rivers. We also learned about an initiative in Kenya. Our organization is global, so we do have locations outside of the US. So we try to bring in awareness from these locations as well to be inclusive. In Kenya, this initiative is focusing on gathering textile and repurposing them for additional consumption, because, as we all know, in our developing nations, that is usually where they get the brunt of what the rest of the world is doing as far as their consumption. So we wanted to shed some light on how they're taking a positive action towards that. And we also take an opportunity to research local organizations right in our own backyards, again, globally, and bring on one of the leadership team from there to share what their organization is doing, and then give them a donation to help support their efforts. So in 2022, we donated to the Newtown Creek Alliance, which is right near our headquarters in Long Island City, New York. And that donation would help support cleaning up the waterways that connect the boroughs here in New York. We try to pick a local organization so that our staff can then continue volunteer efforts and use up the volunteer hours that are built into our corporate benefits. So, these are, again, one of the biggest events that we hold. We do have other events throughout the year with other environmental days. So we all know coming up right around the corner is Earth Day. So we have started planning our celebrations around April 22nd. We're looking at doing an in-person volunteer event with our staff. We held one last year at one of the local botanical gardens where we participated in a horticulture project, weeding magnolia orchards as the season was coming in. It's hard work, I have to say, but again, enjoyable, a fun, rewarding experience. We top it off with learning about what the Botanical Gardens does in efforts to maintain the grounds and keep it sustainable, and the vegetable gardens that they have there as well, that you can take back these tips and best practices and be able to implement, again, in your own homes. So this year, we're looking at joining with Partnership for Parks here in New York to be able to go and clean the waterways along the river, along the Hudson River. So that's in the works for this year. We try to do at least 3 main events like these throughout the year to keep it top of mind. So in the latter part of 2022, we held a lunch and learn to raise awareness on electric vehicles and hybrid vehicles. So folks that were kind of teetering on that decision on whether this was the best fit for them got an opportunity to listen in from folks that drive these types of sustainable vehicles in their own backyards again. Right here in New York, we know what the traffic is like. So any questions that they had were answered directly from folks that are living the experience day to day. We partnered with that with 511 New York Rideshare here that hosted the event and allowed us and our groups to participate. So, you know, from there, the usual newsletters, communication pieces highlighting what folks do on their own time as volunteer work. We highlight all of that through newsletters as well. So it is, you know, something that it takes a lot of work to organize and put together, but at the end of the day, the staff really appreciates that we're raising these topics and allowing them to share what their experience is. So those are some of the things that we're doing here, but I would love to hear what the group is doing in their own organizations. Of course, sharing ideas, that's the way to go. Why recreate the wheel is working for you. You know, we can borrow and share those practices as well. I guess, Liz, I'll turn it back to you.
Okay. Anyone have any plans for Earth Day coming up on the 22nd of April? Any sharing of practical best tips with members, or using potentially your on-screen, you know, in branch, in office signage to send some practical did you knows out there of sustainability? Just some thoughts. Participating in fairs also with your community is another great way for your members also to see you out there championing the cause and aligning with their values. Any other quick points anyone wanted to share about the environment days, or any other strategies if you were launching any new eco-friendly green products, sustainable products? We'd love to hear about them, incentivizing members about their energy efficient choices. Anything that you wanted to enlighten us on? We can always look ahead to our next call, and do want to engage you continually. Anthony over there raising his hand. Anthony, over to you.
Hello, thank you for the opportunity and for putting this together. My name's Anthony Norman. I'm the newly minted Director of Values and Sustainability here at Civic Federal Credit Union here in Raleigh, North Carolina. And I'll tell you something interesting we did actually for our Earth Day in 2022. We actually had a CEO panel in which we had 3 CEOs of credit unions that have been a little bit more experienced in the sustainability space. We had the CEO of Vermont State Employees Credit Union, which has a wonderful green offerings for their members. We also had the CEO of Clean Energy Credit Union out in Colorado, as well as the CEO of Electel, which is a energy cooperative here in Raleigh, North Carolina. And they actually gave us an hour of their time in which we did this all virtual. And we just asked them a lot of questions about being effective as a credit union in the sustainability space, and what lessons learned they had. And they shared a ton of information with us about things that they went through being further along in their sustainability journey than we did. And to make a long story short, the effect was, of course, we learned a lot, but there was an overall change in sentiment amongst the staff in our organizations as they began to realize that we as a credit union, a financial institution, can be a force for doing good in the sustainability space. And I can just tell you, for weeks and even months after, I had individuals come up to me and ask about other programs and things that we were doing going forward, which was very encouraging. So just those type of fact-finding sessions that is open up to all staff can really be something that changes the tide and changes the sentiment of an organization.
Wonderful. Thank you so much, Anthony, for sharing that. I'm sure, yeah, lots of inspiration. And those are fantastic credit unions, Vermont part of our network, as well as the clean energy is spoken at our summit. So that is fantastic. Those panels and the opportunity for staff to ask questions and really be part of the conversation is phenomenal. So hopefully your plans are in place for this year for more.
They are. We're actually looking at partnering with EarthShare NC, which has a wonderful kind of a turnkey solution for Earth Day, which actually they have what they call a sustainability challenge. But we're actually also looking forward to doing another CEO panel where we talk to credit unions that are taking on the challenge of affordable housing, which is real big here in North Carolina currently.
Terrific. Lots of inspiration there. Anyone else want to provide any updates or insights and news? For our next call, and I do want to give you all a longer lead time on this. We'll send out a calendar of when that's taking place, looking really at the next quarter in June. And yeah, invite a participant here and throughout the network to provide an update, and just happy to have you take the floor. And really our network is all about this platform, sharing ideas and best practices. So we definitely want to hear from you and know what's important to you in terms of topics that you'd like us to bring up and on the next call. So please don't hesitate to reach out to us via that mailbox, info@uisnetwork.org. So with that said, anything else? I did reference the IPCC report. It's available. We'll put it on our site, but it just came out. It's on the UN.org website. A lot of great content there. Let's see. Monica in Hawaii.
Hi.
Aloha.
Aloha. Good morning. Can you hear me okay?
We can just fine. I can on this side.
Great. Well, aloha from the island of Kauai. It's nice and early over here. I'm just dropping my kids off at school. They got to listen in on the whole call and they had so many questions. It was great. So thank you guys for putting this on and keeping this going. I just had a comment / question. So we are a CDFI, MDI, LI credit union in rural Kauai, embarking on a pretty amazing project, what we're calling the Economic Resilience Center for the island, partnering with the municipality, our local government groups and nonprofits and billionaires, because there's lots of them here, and just a lot of the local community stakeholders to really rethink our economic condition here and how to kind of build out an economic transformation plan that's more of this regenerative economy model, this cooperative economy model. And getting a lot of inspiration from like the Kate Rayworth models and Aloha Aina economics and some different frameworks that are out there that are working in different communities across the globe. And really kind of rethinking our role as a credit union, as a financial cooperative, I should say, in economic transformation work. And a lot of this comes down, especially on our island, to climate resilience, because we are, so vulnerable out here, and are already seeing the devastating effects of climate change on a pretty real level. So one of the areas we've been really diving into is, as a CDFI, and we've obtained a lot of additional funding, is these kind of green products and programs. And what we're finding is it's kind of like we have to almost be our own R&D team in order to find like expertise, exposure, experience in these vast products. And like, Europe has some interesting models, and some, obviously like Civic, you guys are amazing. There's these like credit unions and CDFIs and even native CDFIs doing these things and that have these products. But there doesn't seem to be like a central resource to tap into to say, okay, give me all of the out of the box products that exist out there that have worked or that somebody's doing, and let me know who's doing them, so that we can really dive into, in our R&D work, like evaluating which products we can potentially bring here or tailor here. So I was wondering if you folks, anyone on the call, or you guys know of like a central resource that might be compiling that information. Obviously, inclusive's a big one because they're tapped into a lot. But any insight into how we can really, become experienced and learn and get models and examples of CDFI, green lending products, et cetera. Our state governor has declared, he's new, and he's declared that Hawaii will be leading the nation in the green revolution. And he's mentioned things about green banking. And so we're immediately saying, whoa, 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 hold on. Before you start building green banking or pulling in green banking, like we're here, the credit unions are here, and we're really well positioned for this. So anyways, that's kind of just a synopsis of us, and any insight. Everything here is about connections and who you meet and what you learn. So
thanks very much, Monica. Pablo, I'm sure you have some insight initially on the CDFI landscape and the Green Bank.
Thank you, Liz. And funny you asked, Monica.
Yeah.
Because look, I mean, that's a central part of the work that Inclusive is doing is to compile a library of products and experiences actually that members can adopt. At the end of the day, any solutions that we are sharing in our network need to be adapted to your own reality. So that's something, so there will never be, I think, a totally out of the box, product that you can just implement. There will always be some need for adaptation to your community and to the realities of your community. But I just want to make sure that people on the call understand that that we have a lot of those resources, and this is just the beginning of a much bigger plan for Inclusive. And I have a couple of my colleagues here who run our Center on Clean Energy and Resiliency that can share more in that respect. The second thing is that we're working with the Federal Reserve Bank of New York on a book actually that they are putting together. We're going to be basically writing a couple of of chapters in that book where we talk about resiliency, Monica, because that's, it's not just about, green products. Resiliency is a very separate part of the work that we can do as CDFIs in our communities. So there will be more resources coming out that are going to be relevant to credit unions, especially those that are CDFIs, but not exclusively. I don't think that for this work, we're going to be filtering out, or just focusing on CDFIs. We want to have the industry at large engage. It's a huge transformation that we have to facilitate. And then the third about green banks. There's always that first, approach. Let's create something. The reality of creating new infrastructure is that it costs money, and secondly, it takes time. So I think that the argument that we have been making very successfully in many states is that we're here and we're ready. And I think that that's what we can help you, Monica, and your league, convey that message to your governor. There's no need to reinvent the wheel. We're in these communities.
amazing. We love you guys. I don't know how you guys do it, but keep going.
Yes, thank you so much. Excellent comments. Lots of
If I can
inspiration.
add to that,
Anthony, yes.
yeah, if I can add to that, when
Sure.
we were putting together the CEO panel on sustainability last year, those were some of the initial questions that we had, in just trying to contact and find out, who was really built out in this space. And really, it was just a Google search where Vermont State Employees Credit Union came up, and we had conversations amongst ourselves, wondering just how comparable that would be, because of course the climate is very different in Vermont from North Carolina, but they were a wealth of information, Monica. And what I've found out as I've reached out to other organizations is that those who work in the sustainability space, they are very much willing to be subject to any questions that you have, and are willing to share information to help shorten your learning cycle. Civic is very, very early on in our sustainability journey, but you know, we were building out our network, and we're talking to a lot of different people, and cooperatives have been just that, very cooperative in telling us, you know, the do's and don'ts, and how to really further and advance ourselves on the sustainability journey. So I really would just like to encourage you to just reach out to people that you see are more built out in that space, and just ask questions. Like that works for us a lot.
Terrific. Yeah, it's all about the networking. And Tom, you have a final word here as we wrap up on the note of resiliency, I think, which was Pablo's word.
Absolutely. And again, first of all, thank you, Anthony. I would love to almost videotape what you just said, because I think that's so core to what we're trying to do here for UIS as well, is try to, you know, I think it's part of that collaboration amplifies impact mantra of UIS is, hey, let's try to open source, reduce friction for adoption of sustainability, because the opportunity is there for credit unions to be this. We already have been historically, but you know, hopefully we can share and adopt. You're right, not everything is immediately transferable. What UNFCU did in World Environment Day may not be immediately transferable to your credit union, but maybe it's inspirational. And I think what you described, Anthony and Monica, and of course the incredible resources in trying to connect like CSE and Inclusive, I think that is kind of what we're really hoping to do here. So I just so happy to hear you guys sharing information and the kind of really echoing what we hope we're trying to do by creating these platforms like UIS. So that's all I wanted to say, Liz.
Terrific. Well, I think we are just at a little bit over the hour. Wanted to thank everybody again, our special guest, Nikos, colleagues from around the world who joined. Colleagues also in terms of UNFCU, but really each of you for taking the time for really focusing on this area, large and small, all steps that we can take, and we're here to support the effort. Here's again, website. We're looking ahead to June. If you want to provide a case study example or have a special moment here at the next call, just let us know. We're happy to provide that time for you. We'll look ahead also to the planning of the United in Sustainability Summit. We'll be here before we know it in the fall. So definitely encourage all of your input in this united collective action for the planet. So go SDGs, go all the credit unions on the great work that you're doing. Thank you so much, and we'll stay in touch. Go SDGs. Bye-bye, everyone.
Bye.
And we will provide the recording if anyone else needs it. Thank you. Bye-bye.